Why is he tunneling? This is probably a question you've asked yourself if you've ever played against the Nemesis. It's something of a stereotype with the killer. The hag camps, the blight runs for slowdown, Nemesis tunnels. It's as much a truth as the sky being blue. But have you ever wondered why you get tunneled? Is it a personal thing? Does the killer hate you specifically? Do they specifically just want to get you out of the game? Well, I'm Horcer. I play the Nemesis a lot, in fact. Today, I'm here to provide some insight into why you might be getting tunneled and to, yes, answer plenty of questions about why a Nemesis in particular would do it. However, before we talk about the why, we just have to talk about the what. Maybe you're a newer player. Maybe you don't interact with Dead by Daylight content too much. Maybe you've just read the word tunnel in the endgame chat and didn't quite understand what exactly it meant. Let's define this, seeing as I'm the self-appointed expert of tunneling. So, put simply, tunneling is hard focusing one survivor out of the trial, chasing a survivor, hooking them, and then after they're unhooked, coming right back and going after them again and again until they're dead. Specifically ignoring other survivors to go after the survivor that's injured and already has a hook stage, the vulnerable target, if you will. Most times, this isn't done maliciously. If I'm in a situation as a killer where I'm given the option to down a survivor in a single hit or down a survivor in two, I would obviously want to go after the one that's weaker. The job as the killer is to, kill, after all. With Nemesis, essentially gives the survivor a third health state. Do I want to go after a survivor that I have to hit 3 times to down, who doesn't even have a hook state yet? Or do I want to go after the one that I only have to hit 1 time to hook a second time? This 3 health state thing is one of the main reasons that a Nemesis might tunnel. The difference between the 3 hits to down and 2 hits to down is significantly more than an average killer that can chew through health states or even possess an instant down. While I don't think Nemesis is particularly weak, this is a hard weakness in his kit that makes tunneling seem like a more viable option to a lot of players, especially those that are maybe less confident on the killer. A good Nemesis in 90% of lobbies can spread hooks, contaminations, and not necessarily need to do it, but in lobbies where people are actually doing their objective, a Nemesis player can lose 3 generators before they even get a single down. This is a big part of why the tunneling happens. Is it personal? Not at all. But when the clock starts ticking and pressure is put on the killer, oftentimes you need to put pressure back on the survivors. Making them scramble to protect a teammate that's going to be out of the game if they don't do something about it can get survivors off generators and give the killer more of a shot at an actual victory. A good portion of survivors don't understand this. I get this a lot, actually. Questions of, why did you tunnel me? When I'm on a map like Badham, one that's horrendous for killer, while they're at 1 generator left, and I have 2 hooks on 2 separate survivors. Tunneling in this situation is not personal, it's usually done out of desperation, and to actually give the killer a shot, no matter how slim, at winning. I can understand the frustration that a survivor might feel from this, but a good bit of the time tunneling is done as a necessity, not a personal attack. I'm not trying to defend the idea of the tunneling at 5 running for slowdown perk blights, but for non-S tiers, tunneling is oftentimes done as the only option killers have for any chance at winning. I have around 6,000 hours in Dead by Daylight, playing almost exactly 50-50 for each role, and if someone doesn't have as much time in the game as me, they might not get it yet, but Dead by Daylight is a survivor-sided game. It might not feel like it when you have Terrible Timmy 22 and Pillow Toss 38 on your team with a combined total of 20 hours between them both, but as survivors begin to understand what they're doing and as the community as a whole gets better at the game, Survivor is an incredibly powerful role. This isn't to say that survivors can't have bad games, such as solo queuing into a blight with 100,000 blighted rush hits, who is just playing to win streak, and I'm not discounting the solo queue compared to a full Swift playing to 4 out is a vastly different game, but that's just kind of the experience of playing Dead by Daylight outside of doing comp. You never really know what you're gonna get. One night you might get 10 different killers with no repeats, and another night you might get 10 ghouls. Alas, I'm getting off track. The Nemesis. Why does he tunnel? Well, 3 hits is more than 2. We've already established that. But there might be more to it than just basic math. You could say that it's because he's a licensed killer from a very large license, Resident Evil, so a lot of people that come to the game to play him don't have any idea what they're doing at first. There's no rule that says tunneling is a no-no. There isn't a pop-up when you first open the game that says, you must follow the Survivor Handbook. A lot of them just follow what makes sense. The role is called killer, so they go after the wounded target. It's sort of a base instinct between predator and prey. Why would a lion hunt the healthy zebra when there's a zebra already bleeding and limping from a previous attack? It's a little bit of a corny analogy, but I hope it gets the point across. To stretch this analogy even further, ideally the other zebras would protect the wounded zebra. Maybe a bad example of an animal to choose for this, but just work with me here. In Dead by Daylight, the other healthier zebras simply leave the injured zebra to die a lot of the time. Survivor is a team role, and sometimes you need help. Oftentimes, no help comes, and the zebras are picked off one by one. Again, bad analogy, but I hope it gets the point across. Earlier, we talked a little bit about what tunneling is. Now, I want to talk about what tunneling isn't. Tunneling is the direct act of targeting one survivor over and over and over again, oftentimes ignoring other survivors to go after the first one again. Tunneling is not any of the following. Forcibly body blocking the killer with your borrowed time to let your unhooker escape more easily. This, technically, while it is tunneling, you have used your defensive option offensively and have accepted the consequences of your actions. Now, let's say you got off the hook and you immediately start hovering, and now you are attempting to get a flashlight or a pallet save on the person that saved you. Again, if you're going to stop me from hooking someone else, aka not tunneling, then sure, why wouldn't I? It's like offering yourself up to the killer. Hopping in a locker directly in front of the killer to forcefully activate your decisive strike while the killer is actively going after somebody else. Again, using the defensive option offensively. Or getting chased again after the killer chases another survivor, hooking you, hooking them, and then chasing you again. Tunneling two people at the same time is not a thing, because inherently tunneling is one person. So you cannot A, B, A. That makes no sense. The killer kills you. That is not inherently tunneling. Can't believe I have to say that, but just because you die does not mean you got tunneled. The killer is playing Nemesis. This is also not inherently tunneling. Is the Nemesis more likely to tunnel you? Absolutely. Probably. Maybe. But it is not the default, I promise. Speaking as the voice of the Nemesis, I promise, it is possible to play him without doing it. And my last big one about what is not tunneling is when the killer gets a kill after 8 hooks with no kills. That is 2, 2, 2, 2 on everybody. I have genuinely had this happen to me and been accused of it. I didn't even hook anybody twice in a row, and it just kind of happened that I wholesome chungus 8 hooked, and then I got a couple of kills at the very end. So like 10 hook game. Solid, right? And yeah, I was accused of tunneling. This isn't something that happens often. I just really feel like I had to bring it up because genuinely I was so shocked at what I was reading in the endgame chat with my own 2 eyes that I want to share with the class. Okay, thank you for listening. And yes, you can run perks to counter getting tunneled. Does it suck to have to run defenses against something that doesn't even happen? Well, yeah. I'd love to not run slowdown perks, but unfortunately, if I don't do that, the game is over in 5 minutes. There's a lot to be said about Dead by Daylight's design long-term when it comes to more band-aids than actual life-changing surgery on game balance and design, but I digress. That's a video for another time. You can 100% run perks that counter the most annoying aspects of the game for you or your character. If you don't like finding generators, try Deja Vu. If you don't like that hills are a death trap, try Balanced Landing. If you don't like exhaustion perks on the killer end, try Mindbreaker or Languid Touch. If you struggle to find survivors at the beginning of the trial, try Lethal Pursuer. If you don't want to get tunneled, try Decisive Strike, or Off the Record, or have someone run Babysitter, or you get the point. A lot of perks exist to counter playstyles you dislike, and while band-aids are obviously not an optimal solution long-term, it's still better to put a band-aid on than let the wound fester. But again, I digress. Now that we know what is and isn't tunneling, as well as the why of why tunneling might happen, is it possible that the killer player is doing it specifically to spite you? Well, I'm not gonna lie, it's absolutely possible. I've had a player get a flashlight save on me 3 times before I got my first hook, and I will be completely honest with you, I did go out of my way to make sure that they died. I ended up 4K'ing somehow, but it felt like a victory just getting that one person out. But oftentimes enough, no. Tunneling is done out of necessity rather than out of malice. This might seem as a surprise, but oftentimes people enjoy playing killer just because they like playing the role. not just because they want to make the day of a Survivor player worse. Playing the game to win isn't a crime. This goes for both sides. Obviously, I'm just heavily annoyed by the existence of some Survivor perks, or when a Survivor gets a successful save off, or they finish a gen in my face, or whatever. I don't think using mechanics that exist in the game is a problem that I have with the player. It's more so a problem that just exists inherently in the game's design. I'd love it if there was a universe where there was an official mode that was just chases instead of worrying about generators, but gen rushing and tunneling and getting out perked by the other side are things that are just in the game. A lot of Dead by Daylight is the chase part of it, and generators on both sides just feel like busy work. I'm not really a fan of busy work personally. Maybe this is an opinion shared by plenty of people. Things up though, tunneling isn't personal. A lot of the time, you aren't even being tunneled. Nemesis players do it because their killer has to hit you more often than the average killer. And yes, you can run perks to counter being tunneled. Maybe they're a little less fun, but I think that dying is personally less fun than living. I also wish that I lived in a world where Dead by Daylight was balanced around skill more so than the perks, and I didn't have to worry about pressure or the mere idea of getting out perks. But that's the fog we play in. This has been Horcer. Thank you for watching.